I offer a sort of opening question to spur a conversation.
As always, this opening lecture is dedicated to our freshmen.
Such questions as, how shall I believe in the possibility that my mind could attain truth?
Welcome back to another episode of The College. In today's episode, we're going to be talking with Chris Krueger about athletics at St. John's.
Thank you again for hopping on and taking the time to talk. I just really wanted to get to know a little bit about what intramurals is and what we do and how it's run. And I thought you'd be a great resource, not only because you're the athletic director, but also you have personal experience of being on a team and going through the program. So I guess to start out, could you just describe how, what happens when you're first admitted to the college?
Yeah, so it happened to me like it happens to every Johnnie. As soon as you enroll, you're put onto one of the 5 teams that we've had since 1962, and then you're a member of that team. So thereafter, you're drafted in your sophomore year. So that happened to me as well. So in your second year at the college, you're put onto one of the teams permanently, and that might mean you're on the same team you were when you were a freshman, and it might mean that you're on a different team. And there's always a little bit of drama around that. So that's what happens when you first get to the college, and then what that means is that you're all of your peers, every single person at the college. It's not just the students, in fact, everybody's on a team, and everybody is allocated when they arrive at the college to one of those teams. So it's a way to have a built-in community. And I guess that's what happens, is that when you become a member of the St. John's College community, one thing that means is that you're on an athletic team. And that's that's actually what makes our program very special, is that we're not inviting people who have trained at a high level to be athletes in our program. It's everyone, and it's athletics for all.
No, I think that's absolutely wonderful. I've thoroughly enjoyed playing. I've been lucky enough to stay on the Green Waves. But you say teams, and just for people who don't know, how many different teams are there, and what are their names?
Yeah, so it's a little complicated to answer the question, because if we're just talking about intramurals, then there are 5 teams, and those teams are the Druids, the Green Waves, the Guardians, the Hustlers, and the Spartans. Some of those teams have had different names in the past, long ago past, I guess, but those have been the names in recent history. So those are the 5 teams, and if we're going to expand our scope a little bit, there's also Kunai, which is run a little bit differently, and that's for women and non-binary identifying individuals, and it's still team sports. It's just structured a little differently how those teams are made up. But anybody who's eligible is welcome to play in that.
Intramurals usually meets 3 times a week, right? And Kunai twice a week. So it's Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday for intramurals, and then Tuesday, Friday for Kunai.
Yeah, so you're right. That's the way the schedule's worked out for the past couple of years. Although it didn't always work quite that way. It used to be that there were only 2 full sports for the intramural program, and so there were really just 2 days, but the games, because there's 5 teams, were spread out over 3. And the sports we play, since you mentioned it, since we're talking about days of the week now, the sports we play change year to year, but generally speaking, they're fairly consistent. It's soccer, it's ultimate frisbee, it's a version of flag football, and those are the fall sports. And then we've experimented with different little tournaments between Thanksgiving and the end of the first semester. And sometimes it's netball, sometimes it's basketball. It's been dodgeball before. And then in the spring semester, we play generally volleyball, basketball, and team handball. So there's no particular reason we play any of those sports or will continue to play any of those sports. It's based on what people are interested in, and as a sort of loose guideline. I try to make sure that we're playing things that have some accessibility when people leave the college. And what I mean by that is just things that can be played after, after somebody leaves the college, so that they can maybe take their skill or their experience and continue it past their time at the college. Yeah, it's interesting. We play games like our version of football is, as you know, there's rules that we've made a part of the game, sometimes for fun and sometimes just to make it more manageable for the different ranges of interest and ability that we have in our program. So our game of flag football especially is quite different than many other versions of flag football. It's a unique game, but the basic skills are useful, and toward the end of playing in a more standard rules-based flag football game. So, while we try to make things accessible and thereby we change some of the expected behaviors and some of the rules are a little different at St. John's, we're still building skills and we're still getting familiar with the game and how to move in it, and so people can take those skills into their time outside of the college.
I like that, and I can definitely see even alumni will come back, or even some tutors will come out. I know during the most I've seen is tutors come out for basketball, which is really interesting. It's
not always been that way. There's always been tutors that played basketball, but it wasn't. Right now, it's pretty exclusively basketball. But the tutors are, as I said, they're all on teams. Everybody that's a part of the college community is on a team. So sometimes there's been more tutors playing soccer. A couple years ago, there were a couple tutors that played flag football with us, and the staff play too. And I think that's what's so great about our program, is that it really brings the community together, and alumni too. You mentioned that. So one of the things I didn't say about what happens to you when you get to the college, or when you arrive at the college, is that you're on that team, and you're on that team not just for your 4 years or 3 years. Once you're a sophomore, you're drafted. So you're not on that team for those 3 years. You're on that team for life. So you can play, deep into the future, and some do.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. You have people all the way from the dean to a guy that works in IT, to some tutors. Everyone just comes out and they really rep their teams. And it's quite interesting because it's not I guess what I'm trying to say is it's almost every team is student run, or at least they have an elected captain from other captains. I didn't know. Do you help assist, or is it purely the team's decision?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and probably zooming back for a second is probably worthwhile, and just thinking a little bit about leadership structure in general. You're right to say that each team has a captain, and often more than one. The idea there is that their job, from my point of view, is to get their teams out and ready to play. And what that means is not just to get the players who might win the game, but to maximize the number of people that are playing in the game. And that's the goal. The goal of the athletic program at the college in general is to present opportunities, a variety of opportunities so that we will offer something that will be of interest to every member of the community. We don't expect everybody to play everything. That would be a lot of time, and it would also be it's just not going to beat everybody's appetite. Not every game will beat everybody's appetite. So we don't necessarily expect that, but we try to make opportunities available so that we will provide something of interest to everybody on campus. So that's the goal, and the student leaders are sort of, they're expected to play the game that way, and to help guide the program so that it is structured in that way.
And go ahead. I was just saying, and usually these players, or the captains of the teams, they don't necessarily have to be the best player or the one that comes out the most. They're usually someone that will use their voice to help create an equal, a balance on the team, a balance of fun but competitiveness, and something that not only a select few would enjoy, but the vast majority of the team will enjoy. I think it's really helpful, especially because I personally, when I go out and I play, I see people that have never kicked a soccer ball or have never thrown a football, and they're always they're coming out and they're trying new things, and they're able to do that because they don't feel the pressure of having to be good. Rather, they feel oh, this is a good way to take a step away from the books and clear my mind a little bit. And I'm just going to go out and have some fun with friends and have a joke around
Yeah, you're painting the picture with a certain brush, right? And there's another brush to paint it with, and that's that the thing that makes sports more compelling than Netflix is that there is this little element of I'm going to beat you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be a mistake to paint the picture exclusively with the brush that we're trying to make it, sort of fun. And I think you were astute to note that there is another sort of layer to it, which is that it's also competitive.
Yeah.
And so to make that work, this is where we sort of sometimes get into the rules being a little bit different than they might be elsewhere. Like with basketball, we play with A and B teams. And generally speaking, the guideline is, your experienced basketball players are going to be on your A team and your less experienced basketball players are going to be on your B team. But we try to put people who might have a certain level of athleticism, but don't have any particular basketball skill. We sometimes put them on A team because they might make it unmanageable for the B team to operate if they were playing against them just by virtue of their speed or their general competitiveness. So it's certainly true that we're trying to have fun, but one of the things that makes sports so fun is this competitive urge, and not everybody knows how fun that is when they get here, and so we sort of try to give a balanced approach to that. But in the end, I think the reason people like our sports program is that there's a built-in sort of history where you get to, since the 5 teams are always the same, which is not the case at most colleges with their intramural program. It's usually the case that the teams are put in by interested parties who think they're going to win, or by interested parties who think they're not going to win, but they just want to have fun. So the frats will put in teams, or just a group of friends will put in teams, and they change year to year. But since our teams are consistent year to year, the Green Waves, I'm a Green Wave as well, as you know. I also was a freshman Green Wave and drafted to the Green Wave, so we have something in common. We may beat the Guardians this year, but next year it might be different. So there's a sort of institutional memory that you can develop, and that works well for us in terms of making people excited to play because of the competitive element where, yeah, they might beat me today, but tomorrow I'm going to get better and I'll show them the next time.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the growth over the year and over specific seasons. Like I know for soccer, when we're trying to, it's like the first week of school, what is it, freshmen, senior versus juniors, and sophomores and juniors, and we're out there just having fun, having a nice like competitive game, but we're also trying to encourage the freshmen to come out. And I can't say every, but the captains or people that know any freshmen are trying to get them to come out and say, hey, there's a game this weekend, come out and support. Because we're really trying to instill something that is, at least how I've seen it, it is much deeper than just on the field or in the court. It is more like it's like you have a place to fit in. Not necessarily like other teams are exclusive in a way, but it's like you always have a place and people to talk to if you need it.
Yeah, so that goes back to your question, I think, about captains and what their role is and sort of how they're selected. We have to walk this weird line where we've got some people that played at a very high level, some people who have played at a collegiate level, an intercollegiate level elsewhere, and then come to St. John's because for whatever reason, they may have chosen to join us. And so we're trying to provide a venue for them while also providing a venue for somebody who's never played a game before, may have never even done anything athletic in a team sport orientation. So it's very complicated to think about who can lead that. So what we do is we try to select people who will be good leaders in general, and hopefully they have some aptitude, if not in the technical skill of the game, in the sort of general sort of enthusiasm for learning something new, so that they can guide in that way. You can lead by example by showing the way to develop, just as well as you can lead by example of being already capable of executing certain skills. So I say that because in a certain way, the captains are just as important as the people who would more usually be thought of as the student leaders on campus in the form of the RAs. Not to say that the RAs are in any way, I don't mean to diminish the significance of the RAs on campus. They're obviously crucial and great, but in a certain way, the intramural captains become a sort of additional sort of resource for their peers.
Yeah, and I could definitely see through my experience here for the past 2 years, I can see that where myself or even some friends, they'll just reach out not only to like an RA about something that pertains to the dorms, but if they also feel more comfortable reaching out to their like captain or someone else on their team that they bond with, and they're like, hey, let's talk about this. It's could you help? Like, even if it could go to as simple as like, hey, could you show me how to shoot a free throw, how to like more effectively shoot a free throw? Hey, could you give me some tips on a certain play to run? Which is always helpful in my opinion, because like no matter where you go on campus, there's always someone that is willing to help, and I think that's very important to have. As we talk about that, I wanted to know, because each team has a leader or a group of leaders that will try to help develop the team. But for you as an athletic director, what is the philosophy that you go about with sports?
Yeah, it's a big struggle. There's a lot that can be discouraging about sports. It's really easy to fail. In some sense, it's easier to fail than to succeed, because there's so many there's so many variables to track, and it's easy to lose track of all of them. And the trip, you can fail to estimate your speed properly. There's all manner of ways you can fail to accomplish your goal. Again, I think this comes back to the competitiveness. I think that people like to get better, and I think that it's easy for people to get that to have the experience of improving over time. Now, you might fail in a moment, but over time, I think people get better in our program because of the balance we're trying to strike. So, and that balance I'm referring to is the fun competitiveness balance. And I think that what works in our favor is two main things. And the first thing is that we try to balance that fun competitiveness so that people on the whole get to see themselves getting better over time, because nobody's out there trying to just destroy their opponent. They're trying to win for sure, but it's a pretty safe environment. And so you come up against struggles and you can see yourself develop as an athlete. The other thing that I think works in our favor is that I think it's pretty fair to say that very few people, if any, probably no one has ever come to St. John's and said, I'm going to St. John's College to play sports. I guess it's possible, but I think it's very unlikely. I think a lot of people do say that they stay at St. John's College because of the sports program. And they don't mean that they're here because they really love to play the sports and they hate the rest of what they're doing at the college. They just mean that it gives them, maybe it's a sense of place, maybe it's a sense of just a way to blow off some steam. But what I'm trying to point to is that we fit into a bigger system in terms of the life of the college, and we don't try to isolate ourselves from that. It's not as if there's the gym and there's the classroom buildings. If you come into the gym, you're going to hear people talking about their classwork. If you're standing on the sideline, you're going to hear people they're just going to be talking about the books they're reading in class, but you're also going to hear references to the program of study on the field. And, for example, our timeouts, I mean, it's often just insignificant. Sometimes it's significant, but it's often insignificant. Like our timeouts in our flag football game are called seminars, right? So we're trying to tie things together and provide venues for exploring the ideas discussed in the seminars, for example, about virtue and friendship. We try to make those things overt in the athletic program. And I think that's what helps to develop a little bit of consistency and engagement for the players.
It's funny. When you said that, I was thinking back to this past year where some seniors were sitting in the gym writing their senior essays as some sports games were going on. And that just to show that there isn't this divide. Rather, it is I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is the gym is a part of the college, just like almost the classroom is. It's there to spark conversation. Okay, the classroom, that's a bit hard to say, but I definitely say it's like any other. It's like sitting out in the quad. It's there to spark a conversation. It's not only that, but you have the sports as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting, right? On the one hand, the classroom is a meaningful place.
Mhm.
On the other hand, the college seal says, "I make free men out of children by means of books and a balance." And I always thought that that was the point of St. John's College. It wasn't because we're supposed to become rigorous, and this is completely my opinion. This isn't a formal statement of anything on the college or on behalf of the college, but I always thought as a student and as an alum that the college was about freedom, and it was about helping me develop the skills to be a free person. And I think that happens, that's the point of our sports program too. And that's why we fit in to the college. And the classroom is a distinctive experience, and it's obviously important, and it's central, frankly. But it's only important because of what it means to us. And what I mean is what it means to our lives. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The College. Stay tuned for a new episode next week.